Well, certainly is going to be more of a somber tone to this video than others recently. But it is time to make it, and it's definitely something that I feel like needs to be made to kind of put a ribbon on everything and kind of get some closure on the whole situation. But as you guys know, we haven't been posting a lot recently for a number of reasons, but the main reason has been Nova, our macaw, has since passed away from the last video that we've made, and I'm here to kind of talk about that and kind of go over everything that happened with her. So like I mentioned a few videos ago, Nova originally had a head injury from hanging on one toe from the top of her cage. Basically, she slipped off from that one toe, smacked her beak on a little mirror that was underneath her tree perch out in the living room. Basically, what that caused was a bunch of blood pooling in her beak, specifically towards the base of her beak. And she was hospitalized for that for probably 2 to 3 months, and pretty much made a full recovery from that injury. There were at least no more recurring issues from that specific injury at the time of her death and for the months leading up before the time of her death. Basically, when she had gotten home from that hospitalization, she started to develop more of a feather picking behavior on her blood feathers. So essentially, before they would even poke fully through the skin, she was already starting to pick at them. We'll get into why that wasn't more of a main concern or a main symptom for us, especially now that we have the post-mortem results of her, what was going on with her. But that's just important context so you can understand kind of from an outside perspective. She had gotten home from hospitalization, was doing well for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden begun this feather picking behavior, feather mutilation behavior. And as we've discussed before, and if you're a bird owner, as you know, it is very dangerous for birds to pick their blood feathers, especially their main blood feathers coming from their, their wings or their tail feathers. They're very big, and basically if they break, it's like a dam breaking, and they don't have a clotting mechanism to stop that. So basically you have to put some powder on there and help them make sure that they're okay. It turns out that feather picking behavior was secondary, in addition to several other secondary second or third order effects of the main issue that were throwing us off, making it basically impossible to diagnose exactly what was going on with her when she was still alive. But it's a lot of build-up to just say the thing that eventually took her out was heart disease. Now, it's interesting that it's heart disease for a number of reasons. The main reason being is the vast majority of symptoms. I would say you bring them to any avian vet, as we did. We brought her to 4 to 5 different vets, and they all said the same thing. It is likely coronavirus. It is likely avian ganglionuritis. It's likely some sort of issue with her proventriculus, and that's what it is. But as we found out now, that isn't what it is. It was actually heart disease leading to a number of other symptoms, and there was actually no sign of coronavirus or any sort of neurological issues or anything like that coming from Nova, which in the long run is a good thing for the rest of our flock, but it is hard to kind of swallow that we've been treating for this disease that 4 or 5 different vets have said this is what it is, and basically just watching our bird, wither away in front of us as we're desperately trying to help her. So after that first hospitalization, she was back in the hospital a few times, I think for a total of maybe 3 to 4 months after that first one, on and off for that 3 to 4 months. But basically, nobody could really figure out exactly what was going on with her. The imaging that would have allowed us to figure out what was going on with her was obstructed by her enlarged stomach, which is, again, a telltale sign of coronavirus. So we couldn't even really get a clear picture of what exactly was going on with her heart, why all of this was happening, basically. So at the end of the day, while it feels good to kind of have a exact answer, somebody that went through, was thorough, made sure that they discovered exactly what took her out, not only for peace of mind, but for the safety of our other birds that we have. There are a number of things that are kind of hard to swallow with it, of, you know, having treated something that maybe not necessarily was there to begin with, and, you know, maybe even took away from the recovery or the treatment of what was actually there. Again, hindsight is 2020. There's really nothing we could have done more than what we did. You know, just to explain like what we've been going through the past almost year now, and what I would say for the majority of Nova's life. She's only a 2-year, you know, maybe a couple months added on to that year-old bird, and for the majority of that, she was either injured or sick. With this fall and with the feather picking behavior and the heart disease and everything that came with it. But again, just to kind of give you an idea of what we've been going through, is we had medicines 4 times a day, one at 6 a.m., one at 2 p.m., one at 6 p.m., and one at 10 p.m. We also had to give showers throughout the day, lidocaine spray for her feathers that were really bothering her, to prevent her from picking them and to also help with the pain for why she's picking them. 24/7 surveillance for months, all night, because if you don't and she picks her feathers in the middle of the night, all this work that you've been going through, all this attempt to try to get her to be better, to try to help her, kind of goes out the window, and you know, you're kind of just leaving her unprotected throughout the night. So for a lot of the time, I was up all night watching her, at least until, you know, my fiance would wake up in the morning at, you know, 5 or 6, and then we would kind of trade places, and that put a strain on our lives, and that made everything else that we're trying to do harder, whether it be building the Ark itself, or just running what's already in existence, or just trying to live in general. Like, we couldn't go out to dinner for a few hours without worrying or having somebody here to watch. You know, there was never a point of like, all right, things are okay right now, like this is sustainable, like for whatever, however long she needs, we got it, like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, there's none of that. It was just every day waking up, giving her medications, the medications not working, eventually changing those medications with the vet, trying different stuff. This didn't work, this seemed to work better. She had a really bad reaction from this, she had a really good reaction from this. Let's try this combination, let's not try this combination. Like, it's just, there's so much that has been going on behind the scenes for the past few months that, like, it's kind of hard to really describe in a short form video, kind of like this. But at the end of the day, I don't want to remember her by, you know, the medical side of things that we've been going through with her. I want to remember her by all the good things, all the fun, all the laughter, all the lessons, all the pain, all the everything that came along with having Nova as our bird, and having that experience. First of all, she was a gorgeous macaw. She was a high yellow Camelot macaw, which are pretty rare. There's getting more common now, but they are very rare bird, a very beautiful bird, a very unique looking bird. And way more importantly than that, her personality was one of our favorite bird personalities we've ever experienced. You know, we have a lot of birds, we've met a lot of birds. Nova was special. She really was. She was a smart cookie, and a very playful cookie at that as well. Whether it be, you know, hanging by her tail, which ended up, you know, hurting her in the long run, or, you know, she would hang upside down by both feet like a bat, hanging from a perch. Her vocalizations were great. They were very, very funny, always gave you a laugh. And she just wanted to be around and to be part of everything. And, you know, like, my fiance and I will be in the middle of a conversation, and then she'll chime in with a blah, 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 and like try to, you know, distract us and be, you know, part of the flock and part of the conversation. And, you know, and as time went on and as she got closer to the end, those things fade. And, you know, it's hard, and it's hard to kind of come to terms with everything that was going on, you know, even a night before we ended up having to say goodbye to her, it wasn't really a thing that was like, okay, like we're gonna have to say goodbye to her. It was like, okay, like yeah, things aren't going great again right now, but you know, it'll pick back up just like it always had. And even though we kind of had that feeling that things would pick back up like they always had, we did know that night before that, hey, like this is probably, getting close to the end now. She was 905 grams that night, the night before she passed, and her normal body weight was 1,100 grams. So she was almost 200 grams less than what her normal body weight was. I mean, she was a skeleton. Like, there was nothing left, and she fought unbelievably hard, as me and my fiance did. I mean, we did everything we possibly could for this bird. We drove probably thousands of miles and probably days worth of time to vets and back from vets and getting her treatments and injections and red light therapy and all this stuff. I mean, we did everything. We were crazy with it, to be honest with you. And I think that part brings me peace personally, knowing that we exhausted literally every other option we had. But at the end of the day, we had to say goodbye to Nova. And that's never easy. It really isn't. Especially with these birds. They're so full of life and so loud and so part of your life every day. And the only way I could describe it is it's as if you're listening to an orchestra and then the trombones stop playing, or the flute stop playing, or whatever instrument stops playing, and you notice the gap in the song, in the melody. It's missing. The instrument is missing. And that's kind of what it feels like in the house right now. It's something where, you can never fully be ready for them to leave, but when they're gone, it's such an eerie void of silence that, it's really impossible to fill. And that's not something we're ever going to really attempt to fill. This isn't the first bird that we've lost over the years. It's something that, we kind of have an idea of what works for us and what doesn't work for us as far as coping and, paying respects to the loved ones we've lost, you know what I mean? And we've discovered that, in a lot of cases, it's best for us to sort of just jump right back on the horse and, and whether it be diving into birds we already have or bringing new birds home, we find it really valuable to not let the lessons and the knowledge that Nova gave her life for us to learn go to waste. And we use those as building blocks to build on, our care for the next birds and for our current birds and for our future birds. And nobody out there knows everything about everything, is what it comes down to. And even with reptiles, who we have a lot more experience with, there's new things that we come across all the time. And no matter how long you do something for, there's always more knowledge to be gained about it. And, you can see things from a different view, deeper insight, and just more of a broader view or a more complete understanding of whatever you're studying. And even beyond all that, just on a human level, it helps to have a new outlet to put all that love and that effort that we've been putting in for the past almost year with Nova, with new birds and with our current birds. And we've already been able to translate those lessons to our current birds and to our new birds. And the level of care that we're able to provide for our animals now is so much more high and so much more quality than we ever would have been able to even dream of, 6 months ago. And that's kind of the unfortunate reality of working with animals, where again, hindsight is 2020, and lessons you learn from animals passing, that eats at you, and it makes you regret not knowing those things sooner. But you can't know certain things until you've experienced certain things, and I would argue that my fiance and I at this point are basically on, avian vet nurse level. You know what I mean? Like, we could walk into a avian hospital and we would know how to help them, or we could be told, tasks and be able to do them at this point, because we have been avian nurses for the past 8 months, 9 months, and it's given us insight on the way that their bodies work in ways that we didn't know before or couldn't have understood before, until you go through months of studying and months of understanding what exactly is going on. And at the end of the day, that information is so, so, so valuable for who we are and what we do, and for the care of all of our animals. And that's something we really, really keep in mind with Nova and with all of our animals that have passed away. And it's something that is the foundation of everything that we do here. Again, whether it be with reptiles, amphibians, birds, dogs, whatever it may be, all the loved ones that we've lost over the years, they all contribute to who we are today and the reason why we wake up every day and we clean up lizard poop off the ground and we, scrape bird poop off a cage, or, we're washing bird bowls, or whatever it is. Like, it's the mundane tasks. That's why we do it every day. That's the drive. That's the push from, everybody that came before what we have now. And it's all building blocks for the future. And I want them to be immortalized in everything that we're doing. And that is what makes this all worth it, So at the end of the day, hug your loved ones tight, hug your pets tight. You don't know when they're going to be gone. You really don't. This past couple of years, we've had some really, really bad luck with some stuff. And you never know. You just never know. And all I could say is just enjoy what you have while you have it, no matter what it is, no matter how difficult it may seem at the time, no matter how painful it may seem at the time. You're going to be able to look back on that and see beauty in it, and see happiness in it, and see magic in it. And at the end of the day, those relationships and those experiences is what makes life worth living. And to me, that's the meaning of life. And with that, I'll leave you guys, and we're probably going to refilm our cage tutorial. I know that was supposed to come out, but obviously things took priority. And we'll get back to regularly scheduled stuff here, coming up. But exciting things on the horizon. With all this pain and all this loss, it's hard to keep that in mind, but there are really some amazing things in the horizon here, and we're excited to share that all with you. And I hope you guys are excited to come along as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this long, we will catch you on the next one. Obviously a somber one, but onward to better things. And yeah, thank you guys. Peace.